All right, everyone, welcome. This is going to go ahead and begin the module lecture for Mod 3, okay? And in this one, we're going to be talking about the aspects of user and group creation and management. So that's how we're going to be starting with this one. And in this actual uh, lecture, it's going to be a little bit longer than the other ones. But it's going to go ahead and covering a couple different things. So we want to talk about first, let's start and begin, just kind of review a little bit of information. So we know that computers have to have users and they need these users. And the way we can tell we are users, like we're logged in. You can see right here. Um, these users are very important in how we can get things done. And we can even go ahead and use certain commands to verify who we are, such as I can do who am I? This is I'm logging as a student. And by logging as a student, I can then log in and do stuff. And then, but I really want to stress the fact that not every user is actually created the same. There are some users that are a little bit more, they're a little bit better than others. And these are going to be, and this is going based off of the difference between a user account versus an administrative account. And there's even a step further than that, and we have the idea of what's called a guest account in some environments. So we're going to go ahead and actually talk about first how we can go ahead and go about, well, how do I create the user? So let's go ahead and there's a couple different commands we're going to do. The first one going to be, it's going to be very, very simple actually. I'm going to go ahead and put it into here for you. The first command is going to be called add user, okay? So add user is going to go ahead and be one of the commands we can use to do that. And let's go ahead and actually do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and reenact one of my favorite books slash there's a new TV show coming out on Amazon Prime about it. And then also overall, I think I feel is one of the best movies that was created, in regards to being a book adaptation. That's gonna be Lord of the Rings. So we're gonna take this idea and we're gonna go ahead and actually follow through the process of creating the Fellowship of the Rings and understanding what it's like to put on the One Ring and what that power gives you. And then from there, we'll figure out how to go ahead and use that scenario to create this process of, all right, cool, now we have the One Ring and where everyone's actually go ahead and taking it. How do we go ahead and actually secure it and make sure it's not mismanaged properly by people like, for example, Sauron. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna try to add a user. I'm gonna add user. Let's go ahead and look at this. Add user tech help. And again, this is actually I'm in my CentOS environment. So notice it says you can get options and you provide it with the login name. And here's some of the options we have. We have a thing called comment. We have a thing home directory for the new account, like create the home directory. We have make it inactive. We can change the primary group ID. And some of these don't make any sense right now, but we're going to go into this a little bit further. Append a supplemental group. We're looking at a no login initial, okay? Create the home directory. Give it an encrypted password. This one I'm not going to go into right now in this lecture. There's going to be a bonus that at the very end of the semester that y'all can go ahead and actually go with this and kind of like explore this activity and just kind of get understanding. Excuse me, changing the shell, changing the UID. Okay, so we have a couple different options here. So let's go ahead and we're just going to do a basic user add. Excuse me. User add tac m, and what that's going to do is going to create the user's home directory right there. And we're going to go ahead and just create further. All right. So we have a couple different things. We have some error messages we need to go ahead and kind of understand. So it says user add is only, don't have permission. So we need to go ahead and because we don't have permission, we also don't have permission to write to the file etc password. So we need to go ahead and kind of like review that and kind of look at that and say, okay, cool. So in the past, we've talked about it, we've used it a little bit, and we need to remember how do we go and get permission? Well, typically then we're gonna type in sudo. Um, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about this a little bit later in this lecture. But for right now, I think we'll type in sudo, and then we'll just type in sudo add user TACM Frodo. It's gonna ask the password of the student account. And now it's there. So if I was so let's so all the actual user accounts are stored in a file called etc password. So I'm gonna go ahead and cat this file right here. And let's go ahead and actually see what that looks like. All right, so these are all the accounts that are currently logged have a username on my system. Now, this doesn't mean that actually all these accounts have access to the system. There are some actual stipulations. So let's go ahead and just kind of get a little bit of idea of what this is. And again, this is all the system, all the users stored on my system. One thing for sure, I'm gonna go at the very bottom. Notice that when we created the word Frodo, it was able to go ahead and basically give us this idea that I can go ahead, when I create the user, it creates it at the bottom of the page, okay? So let's look at this. So this one right here, this first part right here, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and copy this. And I'm gonna put this into, let's see if it actually, no, okay, cool. So let's go and talk about this. So this first part right here, this actually refers to their username, okay? So this is their username for their account. Right here, X, and you're gonna notice that actually every field in this actual file is broken up by a delimiter, which is gonna be the colons, okay? So next one's gonna go ahead and be the X, and this particularly just goes into the idea that there's a password that probably stored in the password file. Now you're like, well, what do we mean the password file? Well, the list of users is going to be found in the etc password file. The list of passwords is going to be stored in another file. This is going to be called etc shadow. So let's go ahead and we have etc/password. This is a list of users. And we have another one called etc/shadow. And this is a list of passwords. I know it's a little bit confusing about that, because you're like, well, why would they have that in there? I'll go into a little more detail about why it's important later on. But let's go ahead and just continue moving forward. So the next one, next field right here, this is the user identifier. So this is actually the user ID that is assigned to Frodo when he's created. Typically, a lot of times, the root user is going to go ahead and be 500 or 0, okay? Sometimes it can be, you can make it any number, you can change this, whatever you want. But overall, this is actually how it works. The next one's going to be the group ID. So notice that there's the same thing. So when you create a user, you actually also are creating a group, a group, or like, you know, you can go ahead and consider like, these are like the Active Directory groups with that same type of user. So when a user is created, they're not only created by a user, they also are part of the group called Frodo as well. With this next one right here, this next break right here, this is where like extra information can be stored for this user. And this is how we go ahead and get this idea of like how we can get more information. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna come over here real quick. I just want to make sure. Okay, did I do this? Okay, I'm done. And I'm gonna finish up and I'll show you why. So next one right here, this is the home directory for the user. It's in /home/Frodo. And this one right here responds to the login shell that they achieve. Now, as I said before, there's a lot of users on my box, but not everyone has the ability to log in, and there's a way to tell for that. Notice that this says bin bash, okay? Any one of the ones that doesn't have, that says this right here, no login, that means that in the CentOS environment, this user doesn't have the ability to log into an account. So we can see a lot of them here. And some of them you need to go ahead and, check. Some of them you need to go ahead and edit to make them to you can log in. It's up to, and like for right now and anything else, but this is actually a really good point to make, that we want to make sure that we're locking down accounts that don't need to be logged in. Okay. So we've talked about this, and we talked about how, like, Etsy password file, Etsy shadow file, and how they store content for passwords, which is really important, going to be really important in the next lecture when we start talking about how to crack passwords. But other than that, let's go ahead and actually talk about, so I did user add, and I'm going to go ahead and apologize for that. The one I wanted to do, I'm going to go ahead and do add user. I want you to say the difference real quick. We're going to do sudo add user, and we're going to add user to a specific different account. And so the way we're going to look at this, like, okay, well, let's go ahead and just kind of like start naming different names. Let's actually add, we're going to add Treebeard. Okay. Now I want you to see the difference. So notice when I did add user here. Okay. Make sure this. Get permission denied. And then as soon as I added the user, it just asked me for the password. I said, okay, cool. I've added the user. That's great. I want you to notice the difference when we did the user add, that was the user add command. When we do the add user, watch what happens. So it's going to ask for the password again. I need to give it permission. Yes, I have authority. So we have this idea of add user as well. And notice there's not much difference, but we still got a user because we actually go ahead and do cat Etsy/password. We would see that there's a user called Treebeard there. Okay. And notice the difference there. So we have a couple different things. We have Treebeard being a UID of 1002, and it's got a group of 5003. Kind of weird. And we can look at that in a little bit later videos. But let's go ahead and actually start going into how we can create them. So user add, in most cases, the command user add, come up here. So user add typically is more of a lazy command. So you have to do everything by hand. Add user sometimes, if it depending on which what version or what flavor of Linux you're using, can give you alternate options to go ahead and query for, but you will have to go ahead and add information. So let's go ahead and actually create a user, and we can go ahead and create a user called Myron. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do user add Myron. Oh, let's see here. Oh, apparently I already added. Let's see, let me make sure. Zero user add. Okay, let me see. Let me make sure we're not. Is that user's not there? Ah, I know what that is. Let's go ahead and so I was testing out this activity, and I know that there was a small little hiccup, and I think the reason why it's giving me the error is because of the fact that technically, when I tested it, I created the user Mayron, and I deleted the user, but I didn't delete the group. So let me go ahead and real quickly, give me just 1 second. I'm gonna go ahead and fix that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and do set. Go to user add Mayron, and cool. So we're gonna create a user Mayron right there. And let's go ahead and check and look and see what that looks like in the Etsy password file. So notice right here, I have a user Mayron. It's got the bin bash right there. And then from there, I need to go ahead and create a user. Let's go ahead and now we create the user. Let's change the password. So I'm going to go ahead and do a password. And then I'm going to provide it with the password that I want to change or user account for. So I'm going to do password Sauron, Mayron. Okay. And again, we only can do it as root. So I'm going to do sudo password Mayron. It's like, hey, well, what do you want to change the password to? I'm going to go ahead and change this to, let's see. We're going to change it to the Dark Lord. Okay, so now we change the password for Myron. And some of y'all thinking, well, why do we change it to Myron? Well, why do we change it? Who is this Myron? And if you're not very familiar with the lore of Lord of the Rings, it'll make sense a little bit. So let's say I want to actually change the username of this account. So let's go ahead and actually, we're going to get into a new command. This new command is going to be called user mod. And this user mod, and it stands for user modification. Okay, so in user modification, let's go ahead and look at this help menu and see what we can do with this one. So in this one, we can do a couple of things. We can add a comment, and we'll talk about that, how we can add a comment to that one. We'll go ahead and we can make it inactive. We can change the group IDs. For this, we can append a new group ID. So let's say we want it to be a part of more than one group. We can also, we have the password, we have the lock, we can lock this account. We can change the UID, we can change the shell that we wanted to use. So it's going to be up to you. So let's go ahead and actually, we're going to change the username for this account to go ahead and be who it truly is. This username is actually called, is actually Sauron. So if you look right here, new value of the login name, that's going to be lowercase l. We're going to do that. So we're going to do user mod, tac l. We're going to call this Sauron, and then provided the user, who's this going to be for? This is going to be for the actual account Mayron. Again, we don't have permission, so let's go ahead and get permission. So we have this, so notice that the mailbox is this. So also when you create a user account, also creates a mailbox in the mail folder, which is var/mail. So don't worry, ignore the error message here. This one actually doesn't mean anything to us. But if I go to cat/entry/password now, we can actually see that there's been a change, and now Mayron is called Sauron, and that's actually go ahead and be what it is. But notice what happened. It did not change. It changed his username, but it did not change his home directory. That's very important. So Mayron is still Sauron in the home directory. So that's something to go ahead and just kind of keep underneath your actual like knowledge. Let's go and change a couple things. I want to change so notice that he's got bin bash right here. I want to change this to be the Z shell, or let's just leave it as bash. So I want it, but if I want to change the actual shell, I can go ahead and do sudo user mod tac s for shell, and we're going to go ahead and use /bin/bash. Okay, and I need to go ahead and say specify search Sauron. So notice there's no changes. Well, why is there no changes? It's no change because of the fact that Sauron already has bin bash as that option. But that's how you change the shell. Okay. Now let's go ahead and make sure we change the home directory. So we want to make sure it reflects not Mayron but Sauron. So user mod tac d. Okay. D is going to be for new home directory for that user. Okay. So let's go ahead and do tac d right there. Okay. We have tac d, and let's go ahead and do /home /Sauron for the user Sauron. Again, why do we get the error message? Well, because so now if I go ahead and do an ls tac l or /home, you can see I have one for Mayron, okay, right there. And this actually gives us the opportunity to go ahead and say, okay, well, how do we fix this? Well, So notice we need to go ahead, if we wanted to go ahead and change it, we don't have to, but it's one of those things where it is kind of important sometimes. So we'll get there. The next thing we're going to do, we need to add a comment. I want to add a comment to Sauron's account that he is the Lord of the Rings. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do a user mod tag C, and that's going to be for comment. Okay, and it's going to be the Lord of the Rings, and it's going to be for the account Sauron. Right? So now if I was actually going to go back into Etsy/password and cat it out, now look and see. There's the Lord of the Rings right there. That's the comment we added to the account. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and actually, with that being said, let's create the rest of the fellowship. Okay. So let's go ahead and we're gonna go ahead and do sudo add user, Gandalf, type M, sudo add user, Aragorn, tap M, sudo add user, Legolas, tap M. And there we got. Let's go ahead and instead of doing that, let's do Gimli, tap M. We got Sam, because no one can forget Sam. We got Mary, tap M. And we got Pippin. All right, cool. So now, if I go ahead and look at this right here, I can see cat/password. You'll see that now I have my entire fellowship right here. Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Sam, Mary, Pippin. And now we can go ahead and get things rolling even more. All right. Now, I'm going to clear this up for a little bit. And before we go any further, I really want to touch on this concept and really hit it really hard about this idea of sudo. Now, sudo, what this is a command that stands for super user do. And in Linux, the super user is usually referred to as an administrator, but we have a special name for it. We call this root. Okay, root has all power. They can do what they want. They can go ahead and make changes, add changes, delete all settings. They don't want to give this power to anyone either. And it comes with this idea that, thinking back to like Marvel and Spider-Man, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan too, is that with great power comes great responsibility. So let's go ahead and look at this. We want to go ahead and we're going to switch users into the root command. So let's go ahead and switch users. So if you just do su space, I'm going to say tap, but it's also going to be minus, okay? Su space minus. This is going to go ahead and prompt you to log in to root user, okay? That's how we get into that. Now we can go and actually also switch users, and this is going to be login, and this is SU stands for switch users. Okay, going to switch user accounts. So I'm going to prompt in there, and let's go into student. Okay, oh, sorry, that was the wrong password. But let's say, for example, we didn't have the authority to do so. Like, right, we can go ahead and go into here, and let's say, for example, we didn't have the root password. We can do, let's say, I can go type something in and see if it works. No, authentication failed. We can break this a little bit, because if I actually have the opportunity to log in as root or use the commands as if I was root, I can kind of break this and do sudo in front of this. And as you can see right here, I'm now root. So we kind of have the ability to kind of thwart this a little bit. This is a really good idea and technique when it comes to what we call privilege escalation in cybersecurity. So when you get to an account where you don't have root access, but this person actually does have the ability to run certain commands using sudo, you can actually go ahead and get root access. And this is actually a way to escalate your privileges. So let's go ahead and actually move forward. So typically we don't want to we don't want anybody to log in as root. Mainly because of the fact that we need to understand how to go ahead and limit this, because you don't want people to have that ability to root. Let's think about this in a different way, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in another video. But if every administrator has can be root, how do you know who's doing what? Okay. And that's really important to understand. So let's go ahead and actually move forward and everything else. We're going to go ahead and exit real quick. So let's see about Frodo. Let's see if we can log into Frodo. Well, we need to log into Frodo. We need to go ahead and know his password. And we may not know that. So we can go ahead and see what we can do about that. No, we don't have that information there. Let's see. We didn't create a password for Frodo. Okay, that's fine. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and go to Frodo. So let's go ahead and actually we're gonna do password for Frodo. And then again, only root can specify username. So we're gonna do sudo password for Frodo. And the new password for Frodo, I'm gonna go ahead and call this Hobbit. Now, one of the other cool things is that it does say that, hey, there's a problem with your password. It doesn't meet the minimum requirements of 8 characters. You should probably reconsider doing a different one. And I'm like, nah, we'll go ahead and leave it as Hobbit. That's fine. So let's actually go into Frodo. All right, so now, as you can see, I'm Frodo. So let's go ahead and actually go through this, and let's try to see if we can add, Gandalf to this situation. Oh, we already have Gandalf. Let's see if we can add Golem. So we're going to do user add Golem. Permission died. It's again, we got the same thing. So even Frodo doesn't have that possibility. So what we can do though is we can actually go ahead and edit this to where we can go ahead and give people the idea of being the super user. And this is going to be what's called in the file called the sudo file. So let's actually see if we can actually do it. Let's do sudo user add Golem. Or Golem, sorry. So I'm going to type in the password for Frodo, which is going to be Hobbit. Frodo's not in the sudoers file. And notice again, be careful with the privacy of others. Think before you type, and with great power comes great responsibility. So this incident will be reported. So because I don't have the ability to do so, it's going to go ahead and report this incident, and I can't do it. So how do I go ahead and get permission to do it? So let's go ahead and I'm going to exit real quick. And now I'm back into student. And the way I'm going to do that is going to go ahead and be through what's called the sudoers file. And to get there, to edit it, we're going to go ahead and actually do what's called vi sudo. So this is how we edit the the sudo file using vim. So let's go ahead and actually do that. So we're going to do sudo vi sudo. And this is the sudoers file, okay? So the ones that are really important to understand is that any of these, right? Notice right here, a lot of these on the left have what's called these pound signs or hashtags. Anything that has a hashtag, that means it's not being read within the program or the configuration file, and that's because it's called a comment. And I'll explain a little bit more about this in mod 7. We start talking about bash scripting and stuff, but this is actually referring to as a comment. So we're going to come all the way to the bottom, and we're going to go ahead and find the thing that allows us to go and do this. So notice that here we have where allow root to run any commands anywhere. And also within that actual regard, student is also allowed to do that. So the sudoers file, think of it as like, we're giving people the opportunity to use the Ring of Power. And the Ring of Power is very powerful. It can do a lot of cool things. So how do we go ahead and actually get that? So let's go ahead and add Sauron to this actual aspect of things. So I'm going to go ahead and hit I to insert. I'm going to type in Sauron space all equals,
And the way we look at this and how to interpret a certain thing, this first one is what systems can we use or have access to, and then this refers to all the commands. Now, if I wanted to be specific, I could actually go ahead and put in the idea that this, instead of actually having all commands, like right here, I can actually go ahead and specify /bin/bash, and that means that he's only allowed to actually access bin bash. Okay, so we can be very specific or we can be very broad in this case. So in this case, we'll be very broad and say, you know what, you're going to go ahead and get access to all the commands. Sauron. So let's go ahead and actually save our work. So let's go ahead and we're going to hit the escape key, hit WQ to save our work. And then we can go and move from there. So there is a syntax error on line 102. What now? Let's hit enter. It's going to give you an option. Hey, you messed up. So do you want to exit the file without saving the changes? Do you want to exit the file and it says you have a problem because you could cause actually a corruption issue? Or do you want to edit the file? We're going to edit the file again, and it's on 102. Let's see what we got here. There we go. Notice I hit right quit and it worked perfectly fine. So the error was with the third all. Okay. So now we have this thing. Now Sauron is actually part of the suitors group, so we can actually go ahead and see how that works. So if we go ahead and switch over to Sauron, and let's go ahead and this here is called the Dark Lord. So we can do a sudo user add, and he should be able to add Gollum, and not really Gollum, but let's go ahead and let's have him add a another person, and this person is going to be Saruman to the group. Okay, so let's go ahead and add Saruman. He's the Dark Lord is the password, and now if we do a cat // shadow or password, password, we're going to see that now we have Saruman who's in there, right there. All right. So now that Saruman's in there, we can go ahead and we can actually fix this a little bit further. And instead of actually go ahead and putting a specific user, we can say, you know what, anybody that's part of the group, okay, anybody that's part of the group, we can go ahead and then from there, fix it and allow it to work. So what we're going to do is before we get that done, we're going to go ahead and actually start, think of this way, like they're at the last final battle and people are dropping like flies, right? So everyone's really, really dropping. So let's go ahead and actually we're going to go ahead and use Sauron to delete, these users. So I'm going to exit and go back. Let's go ahead and actually go into, we're going to Sauron, which actually I was just there. So let's go into there, Dark Lord, and now let's start deleting, these users. So we're going to do sudo user del Gandalf, sudo user del Aragorn. I misspelled Aragorn. Sudo user del Legolas. We have sudo user del Gimli. Okay, so we had this idea that we were deleting all these users, right? So now we can kind of talk about the topic of, well, what if we don't want to be a specific user, we want this to be with the group of people. So we can actually go ahead and give the command a group of people. Let's talk about how we create groups. So there's actually a file called etc group that handles all group information. So we can go and do cat etc/groups. And notice right here, again, here are our users. There's Sauron, Pippin, Mehron, Treebeard, Frodo. So we have all these ideas and concepts, right? So actually, we're going to use another group. So Sal wants to create a group, and we're going to do sudo. We're going to do group add, okay, and this is going to be called the One Ring. And we look back, now we have a new group called the One Ring. It's under 5004 is the group ID for this one. So now let's actually go ahead and edit the pseudorich file so that way the group ring, the group One Ring can actually have the ability to do all these amazing root and super user commands. So again, we're going to do sudo vi sudo. We're going to come over here to the bottom. And down here at the bottom, we're going to see that there's this actual, allow people in a group and group wheel to run all the commands, allow members of the user's group to mount and unmount the CD-ROM as user, allow members of the user group to shut down the system. So we have a couple different options here. So let's go ahead and actually we'll do this one right here. So we run networking, to run all commands. We want this one right here because this is what we're going to do. So notice we're going to type in a hit the I for an insert, and we're going to go ahead and type in the % first, and %, we'll type in One Ring, and then we're going to give them the all commands. Right. So now I'm going to save my status by doing :WQ. So now that I've actually created the group One Ring, and actually I'm going to go ahead and edit this even further, so that way, you know what, we don't need a password. Let's make it to where you don't need to have enter your password to do this. So let's go ahead and fix that. Okay. This is right. All right, sorry, I went ahead and I had to troubleshoot something, but let's go ahead and go down to this actual document. Let's go ahead and look at this and see. Okay, so what we did, as I said, % One Ring, that's the group. Give access to all information. Oh, and by the way, when you run a command, you don't need to provide a password for it. So let's go ahead and actually look at this even further. So that's how we did that there. And once we go ahead and do that, we can go ahead and go into One Ring and see who's a part of that group. So let's go ahead and actually see. So we can do a cat plus group. And right now there's nobody in the One Ring folder, One Ring group, okay? So what we can do is let's go into Frodo and see if he can actually, recover some of the people with the One Ring. So go ahead and go in. Cool, we're in Frodo. Let's do a sudo user add. Let's see if we can bring back everybody and give them some renewed strength on this aspect of things. And let's go ahead and do Hobbit. Again, I'm not in the sudo file. So then how do we put on the One Ring so that we have the power to do this? Well, we're going to go ahead and actually look at this. Let's actually do a sudo. So I'm going to exit real quick and go back to student. Sauron already has that power. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to do a user mod. This is it stands for user modification, okay? And let me see, where's my whiteboard at? Where did it go? Great question. I think it's gonna be here. Sorry, bear with me just 1 second. I lost my whiteboard. Let's see. There we go. Okay, there we go. Sorry. All right, so we're going to use more tech help. And let's see what this is. So we want to go ahead and add this group right here. And notice I have G. This one right here forces the group, the lowercase g, forces to use the group as a new primary group. We don't want to do that. We want to go ahead and actually do a new list of supplemental groups. Now, here's the problem with that. When we do a capital G, it basically wipes out all we had before and basically overrides it. And that's going to be the new supplemental groups. We want to go ahead and actually do, we have to tack on what's called an append. And it's going to add, now it's going to keep the old one, but then add the new one to it. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So we're going to do sudo user mod. We're going to do tac a capital G, and we're going to add them to the one ring group. And this is going to be for the user Frodo. All right, so now if I do cat /group, notice that Frodo is part of the one ring group, okay? So now that Frodo is part of the one ring group, we can now start doing everything we need to do. We can go into Frodo. Frodo's go ahead and get rid of everything. So we're going to, let's actually switch to Frodo first. And this is going to be Hobbit. Okay, cool. So now we're going to set Frodo. And let's go ahead and have him remove Sauron from the group, from having this opportunity of being in the sudoers file. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually go into, we're going to do sudo bi sudo file. And let's go ahead and actually, we're going to release him from this opportunity. Okay, so by doing that, I'm going to delete Sauron, but I'm also going to delete the one ring opportunity as well. But I'll do that after I go ahead and give everyone renewed faith. So now if I go ahead and look and see, if I go into Sauron, let's go into Sauron, the Dark Lord. We should be able to go ahead and see if we can do sudo user add. Let's go ahead and do the rate. Nope, I can't do anymore. I'm not part of the sudoers file. Cool. So let's go back to Frodo. Now let's Frodo, let's go ahead and actually give them renewed everything. So let's go ahead and do sudo user add. Gandalf, sudo user add. Aragorn. Sudo user add. We got Legolas and sudo user add Gimli. Okay. So now everyone should be back. So let's go ahead and look at the password file. All right, so everyone's back. Frodo, Gimli, Legolas, but notice that they're where they're changing. They change where they're actually located, right? So they're there. So let's go ahead and actually now let's remove. Now let's go ahead and now that we're Frodo, let's actually defeat Sauron. Let's go ahead and destroy him. So we're going to delete him. So we're going to do sudo user del. That's going to be the next command we're going to talk about is user del. Okay. Let's do tac help. And we want to remove the home directory and the mail spool. Okay. So tac R. So let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and make sure that happens. So I'm going to do user del tac R Sauron. And let's go ahead and remove Gollum as well. And let's go ahead and remove the rank as well. Okay, cool. So we're not having any problems there. Great. So now, what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and use the principle of least privilege, which means that the minimum number of actual privileges that you need to do your job. So I'm going to go ahead and do another command. This is going to be called group del. One ring. And because Frodo is part of the group that has this in the sudoer file that actually has the ability to make and add users and make groups, if I delete the one ring and throw it into the volcano, I should lose all that opportunity. So let's go ahead and actually test it out. So let's go ahead and do sudo, we're going to do group del, and we're going to go ahead and subtract the one ring. So I can go ahead and go etc group. You can see that it's not there, the one ring. Cool. So now what happens if I try to go ahead and create the group again? Group add. So this is go ahead and this is going to be to delete groups. Group add is for adding. Okay. Let's see if we can create the one ring. Okay. And now I can't do anything because I'm not in the sudo file anymore, even though I was part of the one ring group. The one ring group had the opportunity to create stuff. I'm not part, that group doesn't exist anymore. So therefore my actual properties of being a super user have gone away. So that's it we have right now with in regard to this. This is going to be very helpful for your activity moving forward. If you have any questions, again, please let me know. And then this is going to be the only module video for lecture for module number 3. After that, go ahead and move on to module number 4. All right, see you in the next video.